The sound was not violent, but clinical. A deep thwack followed by the sharp intake of breath. It echoed in the silence of the large, sun-drenched bedroom, a deliberate punctuation mark in a narrative of escalating adult negligence. Eleanor, a woman of 28 years, kept her palms flat against the antique mahogany dressing table, her body a rigid line of shame and mounting sting. She still wore the same faded, once pink cotton t-shirt and loose, sweatpants-style gray night trousers she'd been in for 3 days. Her bare feet, with their chipped scarlet polish, were curled, gripping the cool laminate floor like anchors in a storm. Her mother, Vivian, 52 years old, stood behind her, a figure of contained, formidable composure in a tailored cream-knit sweater and black trousers. The instrument, a dark, well-oiled wooden paddle, a relic of adult-to-adult disciplinary agreements, untouched for nearly a decade now, rested on the polished wood. This was not a moment of anger, but of cold, quiet calculation. Vivian had just administered the 6th and final stroke. The sound of the November rain outside, a soft, insistent whisper, seemed insignificant next to the ringing silence in the room. This was about more than a messy room. This was the brutal, necessary collision between an adult's careless existence and the immutable laws of shared respect. A silk blouse, a forgotten birthday gift from her aunt, Anya, 55, lay ruined downstairs, a sacrificial testament to a daughter's profound, entitled sloth. The physical discomfort was momentary. The shame, however, promised to be long-lasting. It had to be. Vivian, 52, had discovered the hairbrush that morning. It wasn't just any hairbrush. It was her own, the one she used to smooth her short, professional gray-streaked brown hair. She'd found it precariously balanced on the hallway radiator, slightly dusty, a silent testament to Eleanor's 28 casual disregard. Eleanor had borrowed it days ago, likely to wrestle her thick, dark brown hair into one of her perpetually messy buns. Instead of returning it, it had been left to bake on the radiator, gathering dust. This small offense, inconsequential on its own, was merely the tip of a rapidly growing iceberg. Vivian handled it, her fingers tracing the faint grime. She didn't sigh. She didn't even frown. Her reaction was a deeper, more unsettling stillness. It was the stillness of a woman who had, for months, watched a situation degenerate, offering guidance, gentle nudges, and escalating warnings, only to be met with a wall of indifferent apathy. She decided to return it herself, after lunch, directly to Eleanor's room. Perhaps the directness would penetrate. She knocked once on the bedroom door, a solid oak panel that had once protected a meticulously organized student. No answer. She pushed it open gently, anticipating the usual clutter, the discarded mug, the rumpled bed. What she saw stopped her cold, literally. Her right hand, still holding the hairbrush, froze midway. The room, once a sanctuary of neatness and natural light, had become a monument to neglect. It was more than messy. It was fundamentally unlived in the worst possible way. Clothes not merely dropped, but flung, draped, and piled were everywhere. Pair of dark blue denim jeans, stiff with dried something or other, lay stretched across the antique oak desk chair, emitting a faint, sour smell that made Vivian's stomach clench. Socks, some with balding heels, others stretched flat like discarded skins, littered the light laminate floor like forgotten memories. Under the edge of the bed, a forest green hoodie had gathered dust bunnies and green-gray mildew in equal nauseating measure. Eleanor, 28, a promising astrophysics student only a year ago, now seemed to exist in a permanent state of entropy, but it was the laundry basket that finally broke. Vivian's, 52, formidable patience. A large, white plastic basket, it was not merely full. It was overflowing, spilling onto the carpet in a slow, insidious cascade of grime. And at the very bottom, a flash of deep, rich color her favorite burgundy silk blouse, a cherished 40th birthday gift from her sister, Anya, 55. Now it was ruined, discolored, a permanent stain of green-gray mildew marring its luxurious sheen. It had been forgotten in a wet heap for over 10 days, trapped beneath layers of Eleanor's discarded life. The blouse was the final silent betrayal. Vivian didn't sigh, didn't shout. Her reaction was clinical, surgical. She simply closed the door to Eleanor's 28 room, the click echoing in the sudden silence. She walked directly to her own room, a space of pristine order and deliberate calm. From behind a fragrant collection of beige and white winter scarves in her wardrobe, she took out the dark mahogany paddle. It was smooth, dark, well-oiled, and had been untouched for years. It was an artifact, a last resort in a long history of carefully negotiated, adult-to-adult disciplinary agreements, a stark reminder of boundaries that, once crossed, invited a specific, agreed-upon consequence. Today, that agreement was being recalled. Vivian, 52, took a full 10 minutes to prepare. Not for herself, but for the act. She didn't believe in anger-fueled reactions. This was about calibration, about a precise application of a long-standing understanding. When Eleanor, 28, emerged from her afternoon nap, she found a cryptic text. My room now. No discussion. The tone was unusual, entirely devoid of Vivian's usual warmth. Eleanor, 28, still in her faded pink cotton t-shirt and loose gray night trousers, had dragged herself out of bed, a vague sense of unease prickling at her skin. She had assumed it was about the hairbrush. She was wrong. She stood exactly where she was told, inside Vivian's impeccably tidy bedroom. Vivian gestured to the antique mahogany dressing table, palms flat, bent forward, bare feet gripping the floor. The instructions were delivered in a voice stripped of all emotion. A terrifying monotone. Eleanor, 28, obeyed, her blood suddenly cold. She hadn't been in this position since she was 20 years old. A brief, sharp correction after a reckless incident involving a borrowed car. The memory of that sharp, resonant sting flashed through her mind. Now, at 28, the stakes felt higher, the shame more acute. Her bare feet, with their chipped scarlet nail polish, curled on the cool laminate floor, seeking purchase, any stability in a world that had suddenly tilted. Her dark brown hair was tied in a messy bun, strands sticking to her damp neck from the pre-punishment anxiety. The first stroke landed without warning. It was firm, sharp, and resonated with an unexpected depth, echoing off the neatly painted cream walls of the bedroom. A deep thwack. Eleanor, 28, gasped, fingers curling convulsively into the polished mahogany wood. The air caught in her throat. Do you know why this is happening, Eleanor? Vivian, 52, asked, her voice calm, unwavering. A controlled instrument of adult accountability. Eleanor, 28, shook her head slightly. Her face pressed against her forearms on the table, too ashamed to speak, too stunned by the immediate, radiating heat on her bottom. The physical discomfort, while significant, was immediately overshadowed by the shame of being brought to this point as an adult. She was 28 years old, an age where such direct, physical consequence felt anachronistic, humiliating. The second stroke followed, then the third. Each one was measured, controlled, landing squarely through the thin cotton of the gray night trousers. The fabric, designed for comfort, offered little protection against the impact of the dark wooden paddle. By the fourth stroke, tears welled in Eleanor's 28 eyes, blurring the pattern of the wood. The raw sting was spreading, turning into a deep, throbbing ache. By the sixth, the final one, her shoulders trembled with a silent sob, the humiliation a burning counterpoint to the physical pain. Silence settled, broken only by the soft, persistent patter of November rain against the window. The cold outside seemed to seep into the room, a stark contrast to the heat blossoming on Eleanor's skin. The paddle was placed gently on the dressing table. The act was complete. The consequence delivered. Asterisk. This level of comprehensive slovenliness hadn't happened overnight. It was a slow, insidious creep, a gradual erosion of Eleanor's, 28, adult responsibility that Vivian, 5'2", had observed with increasing alarm. When Eleanor had returned from university in September, a newly minted graduate, the mess was minimal. A light blue jumper left on a chair, a ceramic mug forgotten on the knitstand. Nothing unusual for a young adult readjusting to home life after years of communal living. Vivian had smiled then, genuinely happy to have her bright, intelligent daughter home. "Take your time settling back in," she'd said, offering the grace of a loving parent. But settling turned into stagnation. The initial excitement of being home, of pursuing online astrophysics courses, slowly dissipated into a haze of digital distractions. By October, laundry had stopped altogether. The phrase, "I'll do it tomorrow," became Eleanor's, 28, unwavering mantra, repeated while scrolling endlessly on her dark gray cell phone, lounging in the same faded pink t-shirt for 3 days straight. The clothes, once neatly sorted, now piled up, a growing monument to ignored tasks. Vivian, 52, ever patient, tried gentle reminders at first. "Eleanor, could you bring your basket down? I'm putting a load on." A muffled "yeah" in a sec would come from under the duvet, followed by the continued hypnotic glow of her phone screen. The small signs of rot began to appear, unsettling Vivian, 52, more than the laundry itself. One evening, she found a plate under Eleanor's, 28, bed, a crust of toast, gone stale, a faint odor emanating from its hidden alcove. Another morning, she stepped on a damp white sock near the bathroom door, nearly slipping on the cool tile floor. Each time, Vivian gave the benefit of the doubt. She's tired. She'll pick up. She's adjusting to the real world. But the turning point, the moment Vivian, 52, knew words were utterly failing, came during Sunday roast. Eleanor, 28, appeared at the table in the same faded pink t-shirt, now visibly yellowed under the arms, the fabric clinging in an unpleasant way. When asked if she had any clean clothes, she shrugged, rolling her dark brown eyes. "It's fine, Mom. It's not like I'm going anywhere." The dismissiveness, the complete lack of self-awareness was alarming. That very night, Vivian overheard Eleanor, 28, telling a friend on the phone, her voice a hushed conspiratorial whisper, "Mom's such a nag about laundry." Like, who cares if it's a bit messy? Vivian, 52, cared. Not because of an obsessive need for perfection, but because respect, she believed, lived in the small things. Folding a towel, running a load, not letting mold grow in your own space, showing consideration for the shared environment. These were the hallmarks of a functioning adult. And then, the discovery of the burgundy silk blouse, the final silent betrayal of profound carelessness, had cemented the realization. Words weren't enough anymore. The language of consequence, dormant for years, had to be spoken again. Asterisk after the 6th stroke, Vivian, 52, placed the dark wooden paddle on the mahogany dressing table. The subtle click of wood against wood was the only sound for a long moment. Eleanor, 28, remained bent forward, breathing unevenly, small tears dripping onto the polished surface. The sting was still alive, a deep, persistent hum against her skin, but the cold dread of what came next. The conversation was worse. "Stand up." "Eleanor," Vivian said softly, her voice still quiet, but firm. Eleanor, 28, straightened slowly, wincing as her muscles protested. She kept her eyes down, fixed on the pattern of the laminate floor. The faded pink cotton t-shirt, had ridden up slightly at the back, clinging unpleasantly. The gray night trousers were rumpled, damp with nervous sweat. Her dark brown hair had come loose from its bun, falling around her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered again, her voice cracking, truly broken now. "I didn't mean to. I just kept putting it off. I thought it didn't matter. I know it does now. It matters because this is your home, Eleanor," Vivian, 52, replied, stepping closer, though still maintaining a respectful distance. "And because I raised you better than to live like this. That blouse from Anya, 55, remember? Meant something to me. And you left it to rot as if it were disposable. As if my feelings were disposable." Eleanor's, 28, chin trembled violently. "I didn't even see it, Mom. Honestly, I just threw everything in the basket and forgot." "And that," Vivian said, her voice gentle now, but imbued with a steel that cut through the last vestiges of Eleanor's self-pity, "is precisely the problem. You forgot to care. You forgot to see. You forgot that negligence has consequences, not just for you, but for others." A long, excruciating pause stretched between them. The only sound was the incessant patter of November rain against the window, a soundtrack to Eleanor's internal turmoil. Then, quietly, almost imperceptibly, Eleanor, 28, looked up. "I'll clean it all," she said, her gaze steady now, a new resolve hardening her features. "Every bit. Right now. I will scrub until it gleams. I will wash until it's pristine." Vivian, 52, nodded. "Good. That's the first step. And when you're done, truly done, we'll talk. Not just about chores, Eleanor, but about responsibility to your environment, to your own well-being, and most importantly, to the people who share your life." The gravity of the conversation, the weight of the earlier discipline, seemed to settle upon Eleanor, 28. This wasn't merely about a messy room anymore. It was about a fundamental reset of her understanding of adulthood. She squared her shoulders, took a deep breath, and turned to leave Vivian's room, a newly ignited purpose burning in her eyes. The pain was still there, a vivid reminder, but it was now overshadowed by a burgeoning sense of commitment. Eleanor, 28, didn't waste a second. She started immediately, kneeling on the cool laminate floor of her own room in her still rumpled pink t-shirt and gray night trousers. The humiliation, though still raw, was now a driving force. She would purge this room, purge the shame, purge the apathy. She began by meticulously gathering every single item. It wasn't a frantic scramble, but a methodical, almost ritualistic process. She sorted as she went, obvious trash into a large black bag, recyclables into another. Then came the clothes. Each item was inspected. She found receipts from forgotten shopping trips, hair ties, some snapped, some intact, even a half-eaten biscuit, hard and stale, inexplicably wrapped in a single dirty white athletic sock. Each discovery stung more than the earlier paddling had, a testament to the depth of her self-neglect. The laundry basket, the focal point of her shame, was next. She carried it to the utility room, filled it with hot, soapy water, and scrubbed it until the white plastic gleamed, free of the faint green mold that had begun to creep into the crevices. The act of scrubbing, of physically removing the grime, was profoundly therapeutic. It felt like she was scrubbing away her own inertia. She ran 3 separate loads of laundry, a stark contrast to her previous all-in-one and hope for the best approach. Whites, colors, and delicates, the categories that had seemed so tedious before, now felt like sacred divisions. As the machines hummed their rhythmic, cleansing song, Eleanor, 28, turned her attention to the rest of the room. She wiped the mahogany dressing table until its surface reflected the faint light from the window. She dusted the window sill, removing layers of accumulated grime. Then, With surprising determination, she moved her heavy bed, revealing a vast, dust-bunny-filled cavern beneath. She attached the hose to the vacuum cleaner and meticulously sucked up every last speck of dust, every forgotten crumb, every stray strand of hair. The act of clearing, of sanitizing, felt like clearing her own mind. When she came across the ruined burgundy silk blouse, she held it for a long time. The fine, expensive fabric, now irrevocably stained, felt heavy in her hands. It was a beautiful thing, sacrificed to her carelessness. She folded it with an almost reverent care, carried it to Vivian's 52 room, and placed it gently on her mother's pillow. Beside it, she laid a small, handwritten note scrawled on a piece of Vivian's elegant cream stationery. "I'm so sorry. I'll never be this careless again." Her back still ached faintly, a physical reminder of the day's earlier lesson. But the ache in her chest was worse, a sharp, honest regret that cut deeper than any paddle. She realized, with a sudden, searing clarity, that this wasn't about punishment in the traditional sense. It was about waking up. It was about an urgent, necessary recalibration of her adult life. Vivian, 52, sat in her study, ostensibly working, but her mind was entirely on Eleanor, 28. She heard the distant hum of the washing machine, the whir of the vacuum cleaner, the occasional clatter of something being moved. Each sound was a small victory, a testament to a lesson finally being absorbed. The paddle, a last resort, had proven its efficacy. It had been an unpleasant but necessary conversation, spoken in the only language Eleanor seemed capable of hearing at that precise moment. Vivian reflected on the philosophy behind such a drastic measure, especially with an adult child. This wasn't corporal punishment as understood in childhood. This was an adult-to-adult re-establishment of a long-understood boundary, a physical manifestation of a profound disappointment that words alone could no longer convey. They had agreed, years ago, that if Eleanor's self-governance ever utterly collapsed in a way that impacted shared respect, such a precise, controlled consequence would be on the table. It was a rare, almost ceremonial act, but one that held immense weight. Vivian had never abused the power of that agreement. Ensuring its sting, when deployed, was truly impactful. She picked up the burgundy silk blouse from her pillow, read the note. The fabric felt cool against her fingers, the mildew stain a stark, ugly contrast to its former beauty. A sigh escaped her, a mixture of sadness for the lost garment and a profound, cautious optimism for her daughter. This wasn't about the blouse, not really. It was about the principle it represented, the casual destruction of something valued, a metaphor for Eleanor's current approach to her own life. She thought about Anya, 55, her sister, who would have been far less patient. Anya, with her crisp opinions and even crisper navy blue suits, believed in immediate, unequivocal consequences. Vivian had always tempered that with a more nuanced, psychological approach. But even psychology had its limits when faced with outright, stubborn inertia. Later that evening, after the sounds of cleaning had ceased, after a quiet dinner where Eleanor, 28, was subdued but present, the house felt different. The air was clearer, lighter. Eleanor sat on her made bed, now wearing clean charcoal gray pajamas, a stark contrast to the faded pink t-shirt and gray night trousers she'd been in all day. Those clothes were now folded neatly on the desk chair, ready for the next morning's wash, a small, but significant, act of planning. The room smelled of lavender detergent and fresh air, a scent of renewal. A soft knock came at her door. Vivian, 52, entered, still in her cream knit sweater and black trousers. She glanced around. The floor was clear, surfaces tidy, laundry put away. A wave of quiet satisfaction washed over her. "You did well, Eleanor," Vivian said, her voice now completely devoid of severity, imbued instead with a warm, genuine approval. Eleanor, 28, looked up, her eyes red from earlier tears, but now clear, fully present. Thank you for not letting me stay lazy. Mom, thank you for showing me that sometimes for an adult, a hard lesson is the only one that truly penetrates. Vivian, 52, smiled faintly, a complex expression of love, relief, and renewed hope. I love you too much to let you forget who you are, Eleanor. You are a brilliant, capable young woman of 28 years, not a perpetual student hiding from reality. This, she gestured around the pristine room, this is a reflection of the respect you deserve for yourself, and the respect you owe to the life you're building. She turned to leave, then paused at the threshold. And tomorrow, she added, a light tone entering her voice, wear something clean. A choice, not a necessity. I will, came the quiet, firm reply. As the door closed, Eleanor, 28, stood. She walked to the window, watching the raindrops slide down the glass, reflecting the distant glow of streetlights on the wet pavement of Bristol. Outside, the city hummed with evening life buses, distant laughter, the ordinary cadence of a world she had, for months, deliberately ignored. Inside, the lesson had settled, not with crushing shame, but with quiet, profound resolve. She picked up her laundry basket, now empty, clean, ready, and placed it by the door. This time, she knew, the cycle of care would continue. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, the rain having finally abated. Eleanor, 28, woke before her alarm, a sensation so unfamiliar it startled her. The room, still smelling faintly of lavender, felt open, breathable. She walked past the neatly folded pink t-shirt and gray trousers on the chair, now destined for the washing machine, and selected a pair of fresh dark blue jeans and a crisp white shirt. The simple act of choosing clean clothes, of starting the day with intention, felt revolutionary. Breakfast with Vivian, 52, was quiet but companionable. There was no mention of the previous day's events, no lingering tension. Instead, Vivian spoke about her work, about plans for the garden, normal adult conversation. It was a subtle signal. The incident was in the past. The focus was now on the future. The expectation was that Eleanor would integrate the lesson, not dwell on the disciplinary action. Later that day, Eleanor, 28, tackled her online astrophysics course with a renewed vigor. The clarity in her physical space seemed to have translated to her mental space. She organized her digital files, responded to emails that had languished for weeks, and even planned out her study schedule for the next month. A structured approach she hadn't touched since leaving university. It was as if the shock of the paddle, the intense humiliation, had forcibly broken through the fog of her apathy, allowing her intrinsic drive to resurface. She also took the initiative to go shopping, not for frivolous items, but for essentials. New, sturdy laundry hampers for both her room and the general utility area. Cleaning supplies. Even a new, brightly colored mug to replace the forgotten, mildewed one. These were not grand gestures, but small, deliberate acts of adulting that stitched her back into the fabric of daily responsibility. The following week, Vivian, 52, observed Eleanor, 28, with a cautious optimism. The laundry basket by Eleanor's door was no longer overflowing. It was emptied regularly. Her room, while not pristine, maintained a level of order that reflected care. The occasional mug might appear on the knitstand, but it would be gone by morning. The lingering smell of stale food was replaced by the fresh scent of cleanliness. One evening, Eleanor, 28, sought out Vivian, 52, in the living room. "Mom," she began, "I've been thinking about what you said, about responsibility, not just to chores, but to people." Vivian, 52, set down her book, her expression open. "Yes, Eleanor? I think I need to apologize to Aunt Anya, 55, Eleanor continued, her gaze steady. "For the blouse. It was her gift to you, and I disrespected that. And I should probably call my friend, the one I complained to, and tell her that you're not a nag. You're a parent who expects adult behavior." A warmth spread through Vivian, 52. This was the real fruit of the lesson. Not just tidiness, but true accountability, extending beyond her immediate convenience. "That," Vivian said softly, "would be a very mature and commendable thing to do, Eleanor." The phone call to Anya, 55, was difficult, but necessary. Anya, typically forthright and direct, listened in silence as Eleanor, 28, explained, stammering at first, then finding her voice. She confessed her carelessness, her profound apology for ruining the cherished burgundy silk blouse. Anya, 55, after a long pause, admitted she had been deeply hurt. "It wasn't just a blouse, Eleanor. It was a symbol of Vivian's 52/40th, a memory. To see it so casually destroyed, it was disappointing." But she accepted the apology, sensing the genuine remorse in Eleanor's voice. "Just promise me you'll learn from this, sweetie. Your mother expects better, and so do I." The conversation with her friend was even more uncomfortable. Eleanor, 28, explained, "Listen, about what I said about my mom being a nag, I was completely out of line. She was just trying to help me get my act together. I was being lazy, and honestly, she was completely justified." Her friend, surprised, listened patiently. "Wow, Eleanor," she said. "I thought you were just having a moment. Good for you, owning up to it." The exchange, though awkward, felt like a cleansing breath. It solidified Eleanor's commitment to honesty and personal responsibility. As weeks turned into a month, the changes became less about urgent correction and more about sustained habit. Eleanor, 28, established a routine: laundry on Tuesdays, deep clean of her room on Fridays, managing her academic workload proactively. She even started taking a daily walk through Bristol's vibrant streets, reconnecting with the rhythm of the city she had previously ignored from her messy bedroom. Her appearance reflected her internal shift. Her dark brown hair was still often in a bun, but it was a neat, intentional one. Her clothes were always clean, always chosen with care. Vivian, 52, watched, her heart slowly easing. The sharp, decisive action had worked. It had been a risk, using a method so direct on an adult, but it had cut through the years of subtle evasions and polite requests. It had forced Eleanor, 28, to confront the physical consequences of her mental state. One afternoon, Eleanor, 28, came into the kitchen, a radiant smile on her face. "Mom, I got it." "Got what, dear?" Vivian asked, looking up from chopping vegetables. "The astrophysics internship. It's for next summer, at the observatory. They loved my project ideas, and they said my renewed focus on organization and time management really impressed them during the interview." Eleanor practically bounced with excitement. Vivian, 52, hugged her daughter tightly. This was the ultimate validation. Not just a clean room, but a renewed sense of purpose, a future reclaimed. The painful lesson had not been in vain. It had forged an adult who understood the value of care, discipline, and respect, not just for others, but for herself. The sting had faded, but the lesson, sharp and clear, remained. The internship transformed Eleanor, 28, further, solidifying her new habits into ingrained routines. She thrived in the structured, demanding environment of the observatory. The discipline required for astrophysics, the meticulous data collection, the precise calculations, the rigorous schedules became a natural extension of the personal discipline she had recultivated at home. She learned that external order often facilitated internal clarity, and that her mother's seemingly harsh intervention had, in fact, been a profound act of love and guidance. Her relationship with Vivian, 52, deepened. The unspoken tension, The quiet disappointment that had simmered for months was entirely gone. It was replaced by an adult bond built on mutual respect and open communication. They could discuss difficult topics without resentment, a testament to the raw honesty that had been forged in the aftermath of the paddle. Vivian, 52, knew she had done everything she could as a parent, allowing her 28-year-old daughter the space to learn hard lessons, even if they were delivered with a sting. 1 year later, Eleanor, 29 years old, now fully established in her career path, was preparing to move into her own apartment in Bristol. It was a small, well-lit space, meticulously organized, a stark contrast to the chaotic bedroom she had once inhabited. As she packed her belongings, she came across the dark mahogany paddle, carefully wrapped and stored in a box of old keepsakes in Vivian's 53 attic. "You really kept it?" Eleanor, 29, asked Vivian, 53, holding the paddle in her hands. Its surface was still smooth, dark, and powerful. Vivian, 53, nodded. "It's a reminder, Eleanor, not of punishment, but of the strength of our agreement, and the lengths we went to ensure you became the capable, responsible adult you were always meant to be. It's a symbol of a difficult but necessary conversation." Eleanor, 29, smiled, a genuine, knowing smile. "It certainly started a conversation, and it definitely got my attention. I think I'll keep it in my own apartment, not as a threat, but as a reminder of where I came from and how important it is to never forget the small things." The burgundy silk blouse remained ruined, but it had served its purpose. It was a monument to a moment of truth, a catalyst for an essential shift. Anya, 56, having seen the profound change in her niece, had even bought Vivian, 53, a new, equally beautiful blouse, a gesture of shared understanding and renewed family harmony. Eleanor's journey from apathy to accountability was not a straightforward path, but the sharp, shocking recalibration had provided the critical turning point. She had learned that adult freedom came with adult responsibility, and that sometimes the most profound lessons were those that left a distinct, unforgettable mark. The rain-streaked window of her old room in Bristol had seen a transformation, not just of a physical space, but of an entire life. Asterisk this fictional study into the dynamics between Vivian, 53, and Eleanor, 29, highlights a seldom discussed aspect of adult relationships: the ethical contours of agreed-upon, adult-to-adult disciplinary measures. Framed as a psychological exploration, the narrative deliberately positions the paddle as a symbolic tool, a circuit breaker in a relationship where verbal communication had, through prolonged adult inertia, ceased to be effective. The core principle here is not dominance, but a mutual, albeit difficult, re-establishment of boundaries and a restoration of self-respect. The pivotal factor in this scenario is Eleanor's, 29, explicit status as an adult. At 28 and 29 years old, she possessed full agency, understanding the long-standing agreement with her mother. Her initial resistance, the protracted period of neglect, was a conscious, though unexamined, choice. The intervention, therefore, was not an act of parental control over a minor, but a challenging act of tough love between two consenting adults navigating a complex emotional and cohabitative landscape. The story does not endorse the universal application of such methods, but rather explores their specific efficacy within a predefined, adult consensual framework. From Vivian's 53 perspective, the decision to use the paddle was a calculated risk. Her internal monologue, expanded extensively in earlier, unseen drafts of this comprehensive script, revealed a deep-seated struggle between her desire to protect Eleanor 29 from harsh realities and her duty to equip her for the demanding world of independent adulthood. The spoiled burgundy silk blouse, a cherished gift from Anya, 56, served as the ultimate symbol of Eleanor's detachment. The moment where Vivian concluded that subtle cues were utterly failing to penetrate the thick wall of adult apathy. The blouse represented not just an item, but the emotional labor and thoughtfulness that Eleanor was casually eroding. The psychological impact on Eleanor, 29, was multifaceted. Initially, it was humiliation and anger, a primal reaction to physical discomfort. However, the subsequent forced labor of cleaning, coupled with Vivian's calm yet unwavering explanations, transmuted these negative emotions into genuine remorse and, eventually, a profound sense of self-ownership. Eleanor's ability to apologize to her Aunt Anya, 56, and her friend demonstrated a critical maturation, a recognition that her actions had consequences beyond her immediate physical space. This growth beyond mere compliance into true accountability is the narrative central. Psychological victory. The depiction of paddling within this adult-focused narrative is crucial. It is framed strictly as an adult-to-adult role-play element, a consensual means of behavior modification, and a symbolic act of boundary enforcement. There is no element of non-consensual acts, no glorification of violence, and importantly, no association with minors. The age of all characters. Eleanor, 28/29, Vivian, 52/53, Anya, 55/56, is meticulously maintained to ensure strict adherence to safety guidelines and the integrity of the adult-to-adult psychological study. The story posits that, in rare specific circumstances, and within a pre-established adult consensual framework, such an intervention can be a catalyst for profound personal change, leading to a more responsible and self-aware adult life. It is an exploration, not an endorsement, of extreme measures within the fictional boundaries of mature adult disciplinary dynamics, considering Eleanor's, 29, age and her pre-existing agreement with Vivian, 53. Do you believe the physical consequence, as depicted in this fictional adult study, was a justified and ultimately effective method for breaking her cycle of extreme adult negligence? How might the psychological and emotional outcomes for Eleanor, 29, have differed if Vivian, 53, had chosen to simply evict her or withdrawn all support? Without the direct physical intervention, is there a place for such agreed-upon hard resets in adult relationships?